Hey everybody, this is Alex from Pacific Plaza Circuits here, and today we are doing a teardown and repair of the Mr. Black LTD Treble Booster Pedal. So a friend of mine gave me this because his bandmate was having issues with it. They were stomping on it and they weren't getting sound. The LED was acting funky. So they passed it on to me to try and fix it. I figured also should do a little teardown, look inside, take a look at how it's built, how it's constructed, a little bit about the circuit. And to get started here, we have a one knob boost pedal. It's a treble booster based on the Rangemaster circuit. And on the Mr. Black website, it says it has an NPN germanium transistor. And before we go deep into it, we'll just talk a little bit about Mr. Black pedals. They are a sub-brand of Jacksonville Electronics. And as you can see on the pedal here, they're handmade in Portland, Oregon. And it seems like the pedal aspect of Jack's business is kind of the main focus. He's got that Friday Club series of pedals, and he's done a lot of work for other pedal brands that you might have heard of. And, it says on their website that Jacksonville Electronics also specializes in design and manufacture of audio processors and control systems, as well as contract/consulting work. So, super interesting guy, done a lot of different stuff. And this line of pedals, the Black LTD, were meant to be simple based on the acronym KISS, which, if you don't know, means Keep It Simple Stupid. And for this pedal, it certainly is simple. It only has one knob on the outside, and treble boost sort of has a limited function and really works best with certain amps, but, not just certain amps, certain tube amps. And that doesn't mean it can't be used with other things, as you'll see later, because I don't have those certain tube amps. But it was developed to fix an issue with those amps back in the 60s. So, what is unique about this specific pedal? Well, these germanium treble boosters under the Black LTD line were limited to 100 units, and they're sold out. I think this one came out back in 2014. And they pop up on Reverb from time to time, but it doesn't seem like many have been sold recently, and as of this recording, there's only one up there. What is also special about this pedal is the transistor, the NPN germanium transistor, and some of these are hard to find nowadays, especially low noise ones, and this one's pretty low noise. I tested it out, and it's pretty cool. This one has an AC187, and it's in a TO1 package, so I'll show that up on the screen here. And this transistor is the key to the sound of this pedal. A good summary and analysis of the Dallas Rangemaster circuit is available from electrosmash.com. Great website, ton of pedal builders use them, ton of people use it to learn about the circuits and some of the most popular pedals out there and to develop their own pedals. But here's their summary of what the circuit does. So, the Dallas Rangemaster is a booster guitar pedal that especially emphasizes the upper, mid, and treble frequencies, coloring the signal. It was designed in London by the Dallas Music Limited Company in 1965. At that time, British tube amplifiers such as the Vox AC30 or Marshall JTM45 tended to produce a slightly dark, muddy tones when overdriven. This box fixed that issue. The effect became popular because of its sweet coloration, slightly bending the signal and giving a soft compression when maxed out. And if you haven't played a treble booster before, they are something that's kind of up to taste, if that's what you want, or if you have those kind of amps mentioned in the Electro Smash quote there. It's a good pedal. It's just kind of interesting in general to play with if you like boost pedals, and I've been going through kind of a boost thing lately, so this was kind of cool to run across and have come onto the bench for a repair. So as for this pedal, it has true bypass switching, and it has a 2.1 millimeter center negative DC jack on the side, and I'll talk about that later. It's not quite my favorite thing, but it's in a 1090B size enclosure. It's got white screen print on just a black powder coat box. It's got your screws on the back. And it's got a red LED in here. It's a diffused red LED, and it's under a Fresnel lens bezel. So that's kind of a nice touch. It makes it look real nice when you're using it. It's not too dim, not too bright, not destroying your eyes like certain blue LEDs. So What we're going to do here is we're going to open it up. We're going to see what kind of parts it uses and how it's put together. We're going to tear it down. Okay, so as we can see here, everything is actually mounted on the PCB. And that makes assembly easy. It's all held in the enclosure by this potentiometer, foot switch, and our two jacks here. As you can see, they had some washers spacing them out from the side of the board, or from the side of the enclosure, I should say. And the LED here, you can see it went straight up into our Fresnel lens. Pretty cool. So the jacks are board mounted. You can see they're Neutrik NMJ style jacks here. And then we have our 2.1 millimeter center negative DC power input, and it's mounted on the board. You can see there's a hole drilled in the side to access it, and it's recessed. That's not really my favorite thing. I think it's hard to access the jack when you're plugging it in, and I don't really like having the power jack and the audio running so close together, but it also has a battery snap. It's attached to the board with a Molex style connector here. And I actually taped this up because I don't like battery snaps running around wild with positive and negative contacts, possibly touching stuff inside the pedal or the enclosure. So I put a little bit of tape on that. Now the foot switch here, which is actually the problem with this pedal, is a blue alpha style 3PD stomp switch, and you can see it's soldered directly to the board here. So that's going to be interesting to take off, but we're going to have to take it off to replace it, because you can see it's got some issues with the way it's pushing and snapping, and that was visible when trying to use the pedal as well, as making the light come on at weird times. Sometimes you'd hear the sound and there'd be no light. Sometimes it would work just fine, and you can actually feel it, that it's got like a weird give going on. So I have another jack here. Put this one in place. This is a 3PD Pro soft click, soft weight from Stompbox Parts. Stompboxparts.com. They got tons of great stuff here. I love using them. One interesting thing about this is that these solder holes here are actually big enough to fit PCB pin or these type of solder lug switches. So I'll be able to use this solder lug switch in here, assuming I can get this cleaned out enough. So I actually have got a desoldering pump. I haven't used one of these very much. This one's from the place I work at, and I'm going to give this a shot to try and desolder this. We'll use a little bit of desoldering braid, which I have that here too. And so we'll see if we can get that off nice and clean and put this one on. If not, I'll have to get a PCB pin, and I should be able to clean the holes out enough to use a PCB pin one if this one isn't going to fit. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, back to the board here. We can see that the LED has a spacer, so it gets right up into that Fresnel lens. And we got a A10K audio taper pot here. It's got the long PCB legs, and it's going down into the PCB here. And it looks kind of funny, but it's mounted perfectly over the transistor, which is a nice touch of the layout design. On the board itself, we got through-hole components, including a couple electrolytic capacitors. We got some box film capacitors. We have some metal film resistors, a carbon resistor here. Pretty basic parts. You can see they're all soldered by hand, and looks like a pretty decent solder job. Nothing too crazy or bubbly or bulbous on the back here. And it also has a trimmer knob and some test points. So the only thing about this board that's kind of a problem is if your transistor goes out. This is a rare transistor, not easy to find. So most of this board could be repaired pretty easily, but it's not a problem with the board on this pedal. As I mentioned earlier, it's got an AC187 NPN germanium transistor, and it has 2 test points here to measure the voltage. And that's going to measure the voltage at the collector of this transistor. Now, I'm not quite sure who the maker of this transistor is. It has a little D shape on it, and there's a spider scurrying across the desk here. It's hiding under here right now. That's funny. Anyway, back to this. So, I'm not quite sure who that maker is, but you can see it in the picture that I'm going to put up on the screen here. And on this board, we can see that they recommend setting the bias to 6.5 volts plus or minus 1 volt at test point 1/2. Now, that's kind of interesting. You can see it here on the board. Now, the electro smash analysis mentions that it's commonly agreed upon that the ideal bias point for the Dallas Rangemaster is to have the collector at -7 volts. Any value between -6.9 and 7.1 would be great, it says in parentheses. But that does depend on the transistor gain, the resistor values used. So I measured this one where it's at right now, and it's at about 6.4 volts when powered off a 9-volt 1 spot. Now, I will probably tweak this back up to 6.5 volts. It's not going to be too hard, but funny enough, there is kind of an issue because of the way this trimmer is mounted, and you could see it here on the board. There's a bit of a problem. The actual side that you would use and put your screwdriver in or whatever to turn it is facing this box cap. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to get in there, but it should be possible. Ideally, you'd want it facing this way, and it looks like there is a bit of a Phillips head here, but I feel kind of weird touching the actual metal, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to adjust it from the proper side. Okay, let's see what this tests at. It tested at 6.4 earlier. And, it's 6.48. It's basically 6.5. So the temperature is going to be an important factor in how this transistor works, but it's a little bit chilly, probably about in the 50s, upper 50s in this garage. So not too bad, but yeah, you can see it's hitting 6.5 there. So I guess I actually don't have to adjust this. Convenient. That's what I got for the Mr. Black LTD Treble Booster based on the germanium Rangemaster circuit. This one with an NPN AC187 transistor. Now, there's 2 more things with this before I wrap it up, and I definitely want to point out something interesting on our PCB here. We have a little message, and I'm not going to say the first part out loud, but it says something and the caddy. And then there's also this ground tab, which is nice. It's a cool way to ground the enclosure and the circuit, everything together, helps with noise and stuff like that. Now, I mentioned on this one that the foot switch is broken, and that's actually kind of ironic because Jack DeVille pioneered a DIY, no-click, true bypass soft switch in the late 2000s, early 2010s. It was unique, and it's been a much innovative idea that's kind of permeated through the DIY community since he was first offering those kits, and then Mammoth Electronics took it over. This does not have that. These were made to be cheap, accessible pedals in limited amounts, which is pretty cool. Funny that this was like such a special and unique thing, but you don't really see them going for crazy prices on Reverb. So anyhow, if you liked what you saw, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If there's any pedals that you want me to tear down, let me know down in the comments, and have a good day. Thank you so much.